Ming. So we are going to get underway. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Barber, and I'm the Executive Director of your Sacramento State Alumni Association. I'll be acting as your Career Buzz moderator today. Career Buzz, for those of you who might be first-timers, connects students with recent grads from our diverse alumni network through Q&A discussion and networking by leveraging our strong Sac State alumni network. Today, you'll hear from 3 alumni who have made a significant impact professionally and within our community and are volunteering today as part of a larger university goal to keep alumni engaged with each other and our students. So thank you to our panelists for joining us. Thank you to our attendees for tuning in as we kick off Career Buzz focused on finance and banking. All right, I'd like to welcome our panelists and invite them to introduce themselves with name, major, degree, class year, what you do professionally, and who your employer is, and a fun fact. So I am going to ask Jacob to introduce himself first.
Hi everybody, good afternoon. Glad you all made it. But yeah, so my name is Jacob Bisler. And I guess to get going into it, I graduated from Sac State in 2021 with a degree in economics, and currently during my day job, I'm a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch Wealth Management. And I guess to kind of go like a little bit of backstory into that, I started Bank of America back in 2022 as a banker, and then from there went through like say the necessary licenses and such, sponsored by them, so I could go through and become a full-fledged advisor. But yes, I mean, my day-to-day is really centered around just helping clients manage their assets in a way that's just tailored to their life stage. And what I enjoy about it is it's kind of like a puzzle, taking like the important things in their life, such as like say their family, their goals, where they are in life, and just help them plan to get where they want to be. And it's something that's very enjoyable and rewarding. But I guess a fun fact about me is that I'm a third generation Hornet, so just trying to keep the legacy going on.
Stingers up to that. Thank you, Jacob. Let's move on to Naomi next.
Hi, so I'm Naomi. I graduated from Sac State with a degree in accounting in 2020. I'm the finance director here at the Sacramento Youth Center, where we help youth 14 to 24 in that transitional age with peer mentoring. We teach them life skills, the 8 dimensions of wellness, to help make sure they're a well-rounded individual going into the world. And we also offer programs like sewing classes, art mural classes, those kind of life skills that can be transferable. And so I've been here for about a year, and before that, I was in accounting. And a fun fact about me is that I love to travel.
What's your favorite trip been so far?
Last year, I got to go to the Dominican Republic, and that was really fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. And finally, Joshua.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yes, my name's Joshua Winters. I graduated with a degree in psychology actually back in 24 and then went back for an MBA. And I currently work as a finance budget analyst with the state of California, the Department of Finance, primarily focused on the development of the state's budget. And specifically, I'm on the employee compensation team, so I handle all the retirement, health benefits, anything to do with like union negotiating. I'm on that team working with that. Fun fact is I love chess. I play a lot of it. I have like a 3-year streak going right now. So it's my fun fact.
Impressive. Very cool. And while this is not the topic of today's conversation, I will do a shameless plug that maybe my colleague can put into the chat. If you are interested in learning more about the state budget, our Hornets Policy and Politics alumni chapter is doing a webinar next week focused on the state budget and what it holds for us in the next year. All right, back to the regularly scheduled program. We will spend the next 30 to 40 minutes hearing firsthand from the 3 of our alumni here today about their career journey, successes, ways that they've innovated within their career, and advice that they have for you on making the most of your experiences, whether you're still in college or already out in the workforce. Our panelists will not be taking questions during the discussion. However, we do encourage you to use the Q&A feature down in your, mine at least is in the toolbar at the bottom, to post any questions that you have, and we will reserve the last 10 minutes to cover as many questions as possible. So with that, we're going to kick it off with a fun, easy one. Um, we're going to go round and ask everybody, what was your first job and what are some of the life lessons that you took away from that? I'm going to go with Naomi first.
Sure. So my first job was actually at Baskin Robin. It was a Togo's Baskin Robin combined. So two completely different things that we were working with. And I think from that job, I would say a few of the things I learned a lot. That was my first job right outside of high school. And so I started the week after I graduated. And I think I learned one would be resiliency and hard work. It was kind of a crazy situation where they were like, we're just taking anyone because all of our staff quit. And so everything was completely unorganized and it was like the peak of summer. And so we were always busy and coming up with all these systems and processes. And so it was like I had to jump right in and like roll my sleeves up and I like, okay, I'm learning as I go. So definitely, hard work. I think time management too, because we had um, so few staff and so much to do on our shifts that it was like, okay, we have to figure out what is a priority, how are we doing things. And so that's kind of where that like prioritizing things in a good order came in that I use still today. Just stopping and taking stock of everything that you need to have done. And I think too, the biggest one probably would be interpersonal skills. You have so many different kinds of customers that come in, personality types to navigate. And so I think that job definitely opened me up to like, okay, sometimes you have to hold your tongue on certain things. You have to know how to say things in a way that is going to appease someone, and communicate things effectively. And I think that job really helped with that. So that's what I would say.
That is awesome. And you really hit the nail on the head with interpersonal skills, because you go to college and you learn a lot of things that will help you be successful in your field. But often you have to have lived experience to really develop those interpersonal skills. So thank you for sharing that. Joshua, how about you?
Yeah. So my first job was at Bel Air. I was like grocery like bagger. I think the two things that I really took away from that job were kind of to piggyback off what Naomi said, the interpersonal skills, the value of being like a good coworker, and getting along with everybody. It makes one, the shift go by easier. But then, when you need something, people are like willing to help you out. And I think, and you're going to have times like that where you need a shift covered, you're tired or whatever. And so being the type of person that they like, want to help out, I think was really important, something that I learned there. And now some of them are still like lifelong friends from there. So that's the first. And then I think the next is like being dependable. I think you want to leave a good impression with your management. And so I ended up like the next job that I got was referred to me by a manager there. And so I kind of like have been able to leverage that. And I think if people can depend on you, doors will open up for you as well. So
There used to be a phrase when I was going through early career navigation, and it's all about who you know. And you make a really good point, Joshua. Even if you're working at Bel Air bagging groceries, you're still meeting people that can open doors. You're working with people that can open doors, and building those relationships is incredibly valuable. Thank you. Jacob.
Yeah, so for my first job, it was shortly after I graduated from high school. It was, I believe, just during the summer, between high school and when I started going to college. Uh, but it was actually at a family friend's bakery. So unfortunately, it wasn't like a storefront one, so I didn't really get to talk to like say customers and such or anything like that. It was more of one of the commercial bakeries that make the goods. So we'll make like say custard tarts, freeze it, and then it's the ones you'd actually buy at like say Rayleigh's or like Safeway. Um, but it would have been nice to kind of have like a storefront, I'd say. But I guess honestly, what I learned from that job is how to not manage money. What I mean by that, it was my first time earning a paycheck, and I mean, like most teenagers do, they kind of want to go spend it on stuff. So I spent it on, I don't know, going out to eat, maybe buying some shoes or some stuff like that. So basically, got it. I spent it as quick as I got it. So looking back, what I would have wanted to do now would be just to save more and maybe kind of jumpstart saving for like the bigger things like retirement, maybe open up like an individual retirement account or so. But yeah, I mean, I guess that was kind of like a good lesson where I learned and it changed my perspective and kind of how I think about like say planning out stuff and just money today.
You have to have those moments to learn those life lessons. So I think that's a great one is, how to use the resources you get out of being employed. Thank you, Jacob. Since we're here today, giving insight to students and recent grads that are listening in, let's talk about what helped you along your journey. What was the best piece of advice anyone ever gave to you? It still sticks in your head. You hear that person's voice. Um, so, best advice, Joshua.
Yeah, so I think there's two that I have, and they kind of go hand in hand. So I think the first is that to try different iterations of yourself. Like I mentioned, my degree was in psychology, and then I pivoted into business and now finance. And so essentially, the advice is to go out and try everything, see what interests you, even if you don't think it interests you, go out and see what, like, you don't know what you don't know. And so go out and try things, and then to fail quickly. I think that's been really helpful for me because I've been able to, as I'm trying things, I can recognize very quickly this is for me, or if it is for me, I'm like, okay, this is good, and I'm able to pivot and move accordingly that way. And so I think that's probably because it applies to your personal life, it applies to your professional life, and so I think that's been the best piece of advice that I've gotten. Um, yeah, I think I'll just stick with that.
That's fantastic advice. Don't be scared to try new things. Jacob, how about you?
So one of the best pieces of advice that I received, I believe it was actually from my mom, but it's just that everyone moves at their own pace, but we all get to the same finish line basically. So I remember for myself, I actually graduated probably a little bit later than most people do from college. I was about I think 24 when I did. So I remember looking back, seeing like on Instagram and other social media posts, people when they'd be graduating. I still had, like I say, a couple years till I would graduate. I just felt like during that time of life, I don't want to say like I felt like a failure, but it just felt like I was kind of behind everyone and I wanted to accelerate and catch up. But it puts negative energy, I say, on yourself and it's like just undue pressure. So one thing is just to remind yourself, hey, everyone does at their own pace, everyone gets there, and as long as you keep trying and you persevere through it, you'll get there. So, I mean, everyone's path is different, but that's okay.
That is some solid mom advice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Naomi, how about you?
I really like both of the advice that you guys had. I'm like, let me write those things down. Those are great. I think for myself, I would say to go for things even if you maybe don't reach all of the criteria. I was in Women in Business when I was at Sac State, a really great club. And one of the speakers one time, she told us about how men, when they're applying for jobs, sometimes it's like if they, know how to do three of the things out of a list of 10, they'll apply for it. But women, oftentimes we see that we don't meet eight, we have seven, and we're like, maybe not. And so I think just believing in yourself and believing in the your ability to pivot and learn things on the job, employers really look for that. And so even in my current position, maybe I didn't know how to do all of the things that were listed, but because I had the experience of my prior roles that maybe would lend to what some of those new roles are that I didn't know how to do. I felt like that really lent to them saying, yeah, we can actually take you in this position. So just to believe in yourself and um, know that you can do more than maybe what you think you can.
Mm, perfect. And that, you hit the one thing that I try to make sure everybody always walks away with is transferable skills. You may not have exactly what they, but if you can tell the story of how what you did here applies to that, it's exactly like you said, Naomi.
Yeah.
Don't sell yourself short. Get out there.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. When you are in a position to be hiring somebody into your organization or sitting on a selection committee for a hire, what are some of the qualities? Not the skills, not, back in the olden days, how many words a minute you can type. So not the skills necessarily, but what are the qualities that you're looking for either in a resume or an interview that makes you go, that's the person? Um, Naomi, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, definitely. When I'm looking to hire someone, like I just hired a grant coordinator, that reports to me, and what I was looking for is someone that is very team oriented. I'm much more of like a let's work on this together more than like here, let me delegate these tasks to you. And so I was looking for someone that really I could bounce things off of and they could bounce things off of me in their role. And so some of the qualities I say that I was looking for as I was interviewing, one would be someone that was humble and wanting to learn. Um, I think that there was some candidates that it was like, they were a little bit more of like, I just want to get to the next level and which is great. We want people to, excel and reach their goals that they want. But if that's the only thing, if you're not coming to the position with wanting to like learn the whole position and learn about our company, then those were things that I wasn't really looking for in that candidate. I would say experience, like I said in the last question, if they had experience, not necessarily the schooling, then that's something that we would look for too. The transferable skills, like you said, it didn't mean that you had to have this whole MBA. There on our application, we said we would like a bachelor's, but if you didn't have a bachelor's but you had all of this experience that could lean into the position, we were looking for that as well. And then I think also someone that is self-motivated. I don't want to do like a lot of hand holding in the position. So it's like if you are independent and you're willing to like look for things that you can improve, and kind of dictate your own schedule, then those were all things that we would look for and say, yeah, that would be great for this position.
That is a very thorough list. Thank you. Jacob, how about you? What do you look for?
So when I'm looking for someone, either like say bring them on or working with them like in like a partner capacity, what I'm looking for is mainly just like say perseverance and grit. Because like you mentioned, skills could be taught. You could teach someone to kind of type better. You could teach them how to like say be able to kind of go about a conversation better or so. But mindset is harder to develop. So I want someone like say who's reliable and can push through challenges. So you should pick up on that kind of like when you're going through conversations, seeing about their past experiences, what they've learned from that, and what they've taken from it basically, and like say whether they just described what happened or if they can really kind of like conceptualize it and show how they internalized it, then that's what I would prefer. But yeah, I'd say just kind of having the right mindset and being able to work past difficult times.
And both yours and Naomi's answers really highlighted for me as someone who hires people and has for many years. Often, we very specifically craft interview questions to get people to share that deeper experience that both of you are describing. And so I would encourage everyone here not to disregard an interview question for a fast answer, but really think about how can you tell a story and show how you made a difference. And sorry, before I ramble off, Joshua, let's have you
Yeah,
tackle
no.
this.
Well, unlike my counterparts, I have not directly hired anybody yet in my position, so I'm speaking more from my own experience and speaking with my manager. So I just want to like put that out there. But I think two of the traits is the ability to cultivate, being coachable. No matter what job you come into, and no matter how much schooling you have, you're not going to know everything, right? There's going to be a learning curve with it. And I think if you can demonstrate to your potential employer that, hey, I don't mind failing, I don't mind learning. You can tell me when I'm wrong and I will self-correct. I think that's really important. And I think most employers would want that. And so I think, if you're actively engaged in the learning process, you can self-correct and respond promptly to that. I think you'll succeed. And I think that builds on what my counterparts said as well. So.
That's hugely important to be coachable, and you will get feedback throughout your career, and it's not, don't view it as a personal attack. View it
Yeah.
as an opportunity to learn, deeper learning. So, and hopefully your supervisors are delivering it in that coachable way as well. So it's a two-way street there. But all right, speaking of, your work environments, let's talk a little bit about what successful work styles look like for you. You're in the banking, finance, investment arenas. So how do you set goals for yourself both day to day? How do you get through the week and long term? Just curious what that looks like in your settings. Joshua, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah. So for me, I have a lot of deadlines at my job. And so I think the way that I like to set goals, and this kind of works in my personal life too, is being very clear understanding of what I'm trying to do. Like what is the goal? Like when is it due? What is it like? What is actually due? Who does it need to get to? So I think defining the goals very clearly helps you with that. And then breaking it down into make manageable steps. I think a lot of times goals can become overwhelming just because it's really hard to look at the task when you see how big it is. But breaking it down into, okay, first I need to do this and then I need to do this. I think that's been really helpful for me. And then I think the speed at which you can do those things, the speed at which you execute is probably the next like most important thing for me. And so if something takes 20 minutes, just get it out of the way because it frees up space in your head to not have to worry about that and to focus on maybe tasks or goals that are bigger or require more, energy on your end. So I think being very clear and precise on what the goal is the first thing you want to do, and then just execute very quickly on those like manageable steps. I think for me that works in my life. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for the solid insight. Jacob, how about you?
Yeah, so kind of going off of what like say Joshua said with like breaking it down, I'm a big believer in just setting like say long-term goals and short-term goals. So it is very daunting when you look at like say the big picture and you're just like, hey, that's like for my line of work, basically it's I have this book of business, which are my clients. I take care of their finance, making sure basically it's they have a financial plan to get them where they want to be. And it's just kind of like taking that like, hey, in the retirement, you need $4 million to afford retirement, basically. Like, how can we do that if you have 15 years to accumulate that? So that is very daunting for like, say them a lot of times when you see that with that amount, because it's like, hey, I don't know if I could ever save up that much. But if we break it down to like, hey, this is how much we need to make a contribution every month. This is how we're going to invest it. This is what we need to essentially get for like a rate of return. Then we could get there in a very manageable way. But I guess that's kind of like just an example of it. But then for myself on the personal side, it's like, hey, I need to build my book to this amount. Say I want in like the next 5 years get to 100 million or so in my book of business. How do I do that? So I go through kind of conceptualize and figure out the steps to get there, and then break it down to like say more of a manageable area, which is the day to day, where I need to make sure I have the necessary activities to get there. Which I don't know, that could be either sending out emails to like say clients or potential clients, stuff like that, or just having meetings and such and so on and so on. But really, it's just making sure I'm organized and I'm slowly chipping away at everything I need to do to get there. Um, and one thing also with that though is that you do need a good sense of self-motivation and self-accountability, just because a lot of times no one's really breathing down your neck saying like, hey, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Did you meet your deadline? But it's really just up to you at the end of the day is on the responsibility of if it gets done or not. Um, so yeah, I'd say just being able to break it down, make it a lot more digestible and easier to manage, is really the key to getting where you want to go later on in life.
Yeah, holding yourself accountable is a tricky one. I used to make deals with myself. Okay, when I get these things done, I can go do XYZ. So sometimes I felt like I had to bribe myself, but especially to get those projects done that you're really not looking forward to. But thank you for the insight. Naomi, how about you?
Yes, yeah, I would say for me, I'm a big to-do list person and writing things down. I tend to like be like, oh, here I can start this project. Here I can start. So I have to like get everything down, take stock of it and see, okay, what am I going to do first in my day? And I feel like the first part of my day is when I have like the most like I can get the most done. I'm ready to hit the ground running. So I can leave some of my easier tasks for the end of the day. So I tend to write everything down and kind of prioritize it from like a one being like the most important stuff, two to three. And I'll usually kind of do that in my head on the way to work. Like, okay, this is what I need to work on today. Let me kind of plan this out. So then when I get to work, I kind of have an idea. I can write it down on my to-do list, and then go from there. We also just recently started using Basecamp. So anybody that's looking for something to use for their team, Basecamp is super helpful because it has to-do lists that you can put in there. You can ping people, and you can make little reminders for yourself, which you can also do in an Outlook calendar. So just anything like that, that's going to help you be like, okay, I have to stay on track for this certain project. I find super helpful. I think that's for like my day-to-day goals, but long-term goals, I usually if there's like a big project, like we just implemented a new accounting software here. And that was something that was like a 3-month implementation process. I had deadlines for myself. So I was like, okay, this is when they need it by. Let me have it done by this date. That way I can audit my work. I can make sure, okay, yeah, this all looks correct. Some of our GL history coming over. Um, I think giving yourself time on the back end of when something might necessarily be due, having it done before that so you can go back and check everything, I think especially in finance is super helpful, because all of those individual numbers matter. So, yeah, I would say giving myself deadlines is a huge thing that has been helpful.
And I love your subtle, not so subtle nod to give yourself an earlier deadline than the real one, because you know what? Life happens.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say to everyone in this room, and life really does happen. And if at some point you're going to miss a deadline, communicate with your team, with your supervisors, because that will go a long way beyond just not getting it done.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to pivot a little bit towards innovation. I know it's a frequently used word for, how are we taking our professions, our career field to the next level, our workplace. Naomi just talked about, implementing a new accounting system. Um, if each of you could share a little bit about the value of innovative ideas, business practices, or processes in your field, that would be great. Naomi, since you were just talking about the accounting system, do you want to jump in on innovation first?
Yeah, sure. I think at our company specifically, we are at a stage where my boss, he likes to describe us as like a teenager. We're not quite like just the little startup that we were like in the last 10 years. We're at that teenager stage where we're getting into different spaces, showing up at different tables, open to new funding opportunities. So I think in that stage, there's a lot of trial and error. It comes with growing pains like a teenager. And so being able to flex and come up with new ideas that maybe a smaller company that we didn't need, but now we do. Coming up with those kind of things, I think, especially in finance, is super helpful. Just being able to come up with new funding opportunities. We're mostly grant funded. So it's like, okay, let's look in different spaces. Maybe these, $400,000 grants that we're kind of cutting it don't cut it anymore for the new spaces that we're trying to enter. And so being able to come up with new ways to write grants and figure out, okay, how do we get funding for our building and office manager? That's not something usually that grantors, are looking to fund, but being able to think in different ways too and come up with new, I guess, ways to make sure we're in a nonprofit space, so we're not looking to make a profit, but ways to keep our organization running smoothly. So, we have our creative directors that are like, we want to do this kind of a thing. Well, how do we think creatively ourselves to make sure that they're able to do that and keep, the students and youth that we serve, giving them the best opportunities. So I would say innovation is super important. I think we all kind of know that in today's day and age with all these new things coming out and, AI and using those tools too, even that can be super helpful. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Great examples. Jacob, how about you?
Um, so I'd just say innovation, it is pretty huge, I'd say, in finance, especially of how fast information moves. Because I mean, like within my line of work, we do have to kind of be on top of things, especially if, like, say, if there's market updates, news, or research kind of that gets put out there. It does help, I've noticed within my line of work, a lot with just the digesting of that news, just because I could throw it into uh, an AI agent. So I know recently we have incorporated and approved, like, say, Copilot, so we could just throw anything in there we want basically, and then it's able to just spit it out within, like, say, a minute, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably kind of used it on, but it does help a lot with efficiency, and that helps with, like, say, just being able to relay stuff and just save on time, just because I mean time is one of our most valuable assets, and one of our most finite assets too, that it really does kind of change, I guess, the way we flow within our business model, just because we have a lot more time to do other stuff and allocate that time towards that too.
I appreciate both of you bringing into the conversation the advent of AI. I think it's changed all of our workplaces and will continue to in the years to come, especially as more policies and security measures are set around how we use AI in our workplace. Joshua, how about you?
Yeah, so I work at the state, and so a lot of my work is built on, the framework of the past, because, the authority that we do things with is, built in regulation, which is built in, past budget acts. And there's a lot of value in what has worked in the past. But specifically, I think for my job, where innovation happens and where it's valuable is in the being curious and understanding, like, the why behind what we're doing. So my background was, I mentioned, was psychology, and I think the softer sciences, you're focused more on, like, the why behind things. You don't really care about the technical what side of things. And then when I moved over to finance, I remember being so jarred at first because it's very, like, a lot more like black and white, like this is what it is. And so you don't focus too much on the why. But I think what's helpful is that problems are going to rise, whether that be because the context has changed. For my job specifically, maybe one year we don't have as much revenue as we thought we were going to, or something changed on that side. And if you only focus on, like, the what side of your job, it's going to be really hard to be innovative and propose solutions. But if you understand, like, the why behind what you're doing, and you understand how everything plays together, I think it puts you in a position to where you have a unique perspective to think about new ways to handle it or to solve that problem. So I think prioritizing, understanding, like, the why behind what you're doing will help you. And I think that's my answer. So
You are correct. There's not as much gray area when you're working with numbers, but there is a lot of when you're building budgets and that sort of thing, there's a lot of opportunity to ask why and really evaluate if you're allocating your resources appropriately. So I appreciate your perspective. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. We talked about what advice you had received. We're going to move on now to what advice you would give. So, if you could kind of put your hat on, you encounter a student on campus or in your workplace, a recent grad from Sac State, what advice would you give them as they're getting their start in their career? Jacob, you want to take this first?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I would probably say if I were to encounter, like, a student who's just asking for some advice, kind of to jumpstart their career, would be to build your network, both professionally and personally. So your network, it becomes like basically your support system. So who you go to for advice, opportunities, and just guidance in general. Because I mean, that's where you could kind of pull from their years of experience and be able to take that in and just learn from it. But I mean, that could be like, say, professional groups. There are various ones in Sacramento, as well as just there's one I'm part of actually, which the graduates of the last decade here at Sac State, which say once you graduate, you're able to take a look and see if it's something that interests you. But that, as well as kind of just like the alumni connections, or just even communities or groups that have similar interests that you do, whether that's, say, professionally or personally. Like if you like to play, I don't know, pickleball or something like that, you could find a group like that and just learn and be around and make friends in that group. But I'll just say be present, get involved, and just invest in those relationships early, because they really do pay off over time. Kind of like Joshua mentioned, I believe that he found like his after his first job, he was able to get it just because from his, I think, from someone that he knew, he was able to kind of get that connection. So it does open up doors for you later on in life.
Awesome. All right. Well, since he brought you into the conversation, Joshua, let's pivot to you.
Yeah, I 100% agree that leveraging your network as much as you can is important. Like who you know is very important, but then also just like the soft skill of just, being able to talk to people and being able to formulate a story about yourself. I think is really important. And then, but also just not, I think some advice that I would give is to not just focus on the size of your network, but like the quality of your network, and really like focusing on like deepening those relationships and providing as much value to your network. I think when I first started out and I started going on LinkedIn, I was trying to connect with anybody. And then I realized, I wasn't, deepening my relationship. I wasn't offering any value to them. And so I kind of changed the way that I approached that and looked at like who do I want to connect with? What are they doing? How can I help them? And I think that's brought a lot of success to me. And then also, I think for new students, you're in college and you kind of have this sense of like what you want your life to look like, and then you leave college. It's a little confusing at first. It's jarring, and so I think something that I would say is to find people that like are living the life that you would like, that have like achieved the goals that you would like to achieve, and then learn and focus on them. I think it can be a waste of time at times to listen to people that don't have a life that you want. And so if you can go and then see people that are doing the job that you want, just do what they've done. Like you don't always need to reinvent the wheel. Learn from them and focus on that. And I think you'll be all right. So that's what I did. So.
That's great advice. And I will underscore a relationship is a give and take. So if you have someone that you're always just going to when you need something, you're not deepening that relationship like you talked about. So um, looking at that as part of building your network is critical. Naomi, how about you?
Yeah, I think two things. One would be again, just like leveraging your experience. I know I said earlier in my question about what I look for in hiring people, that like schooling, you know, experience can lend a lot. It's not always just the schooling. And so I think one of the people that I hired recently, she was like a recent grad, and so she didn't have as much professional experience, but she was a manager at a restaurant. And so in her experience, she listed that she implemented new systems and, from something that there may not have been, and then how she had efficiency increased. She listed those numbers, and she also listed how she managed the sales and got them to this point. And so those kind of skills, you're like, oh, it's a restaurant, this, that, but it lended her to this finance position that we had. And I was like, oh, that's great, and she could speak up herself in the interview and talk about those things. And so I think just going out and being like a recent grad, you're like, maybe you're green in your field, you haven't had any, experience in accounting or finance or whatever, but being able to pull from whatever experience that you do have, pull those skills that could lend to it. Again, just the transferable skills are always super helpful. And then I would say, like both Jacob and Joshua said, the networking. That is how I kind of was introduced into this role, and other roles in the past have been brought to my attention because of the people that I do have in my network. This role specifically, it was an old boss of mine that he was like, hey, I think you could be good for this position. And again, the position was one that I was like, I don't know if I have all of these skills, but going for it anyways. And so I think just how I left off with that boss, I checked in with him when he left and I would say, hey, let's go get coffee, let's do this. And so I think just leveraging the network that you have, even the students that you're in contact with right now, and just any bosses in the future, any bosses in the past, just checking in. You never know what someone would be like, hey, I think I have a person in mind for that role. And that could be, a door open for a new opportunity for you.
Absolutely. Back in the day, they used to say never burn a bridge, but I think that adage applies. Don't just mic drop and walk away. Keep those relationships viable because you never know what's around the corner. Um, I appreciate all of you giving your advice. And while I start scrolling through the Q&A, this is a reminder to everyone else, if you have questions, put those in there. While I'm looking at those to move to that next step, I'm going to ask our panelists to share something personal or perhaps fun. What goal, either professional or personal, do you have on your radar as your next, like, this is the thing I'm driving towards? Joshua, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I think in my personal life, I want to improve my chess ranking score. I'd like to get to like 1500. I think that would be cool. Um, and then I think just getting through the budget cycle that we're in right now, and really, like I mentioned before, like being able to like really understand like the why behind what I'm doing right now. I think that's what my immediate goals are for me. So
Wish you all the best on getting that 1500 as a chess score. That sounds ambitious.
yeah.
Jacob, how about you?
Yeah, so I'll include, I guess, just like one item that's professional and one item that's personal. So on the professional side, um, I'm going to sit for the CFP exam, which is Certified Financial Planner exam in July. And the goal is to pass that. So it's kind of like I guess like the gold standard for usually advisors. It's kind of like I guess if you compare it, it's like the CPA for accountants or like a board certified doctor or something like kind of like that. So that's what I'm kind of working towards on the side for the professional. And then personal, the goal is this year I need to figure out when, where, and how. But I'm gonna propose to my girlfriend, so we're getting a ring made for that. And if anyone is looking for anything like that, Sharif Jewelers does a really good job for that actually. But
And
but yeah,
they're
so
alumni. They're Sac
oh
State
yeah,
alumni, the
yeah,
Sharif
they're big
family.
supporters too. So yeah, it's a great idea to kind of just support like a local business and alumni of Sac State as well. Um, but yeah, they do a really good job. But yeah, I guess that's kind of the two different sides this year.
Well, huge goals on your side. Part of you probably feels like you're back in school preparing for that exam, and you
hmm
know, awesome. All right, and Naomi.
Yeah, so I think professionally, I just want to learn as much as possible. I'm someone that like anytime someone sends me like, oh, here's a seminar for this, here's a seminar for that, I'm like, oh, let me attend it, or even like this one, if I can't attend it, let me get the recording and make sure I learn what I can from it. So I think just grasping everything that I can, to make sure that I'm staying on top of our field. I think finance is always changing, and there's so many new things being introduced and implemented, and especially right now with like AI being introduced to everything, there's so many things that you can use that for. So staying on top of the field and making sure that I'm the best that I can be professionally. I think personally, I want to travel more. I know I said I like to travel, but for a while there, I was saving up for a house. And so I did the whole house thing, getting that. And so I think now traveling is my new thing that I'm like, let's do more of that. And I want to even travel solo and do it out of the country. So I have a few places on my bucket list that I'm hoping to start next year getting out into.
That's fantastic. And sometimes that helps in accomplishing professional goals because you've got your eyes set on this trip and you've got to get these things done before you go. So that's
Yep.
fantastic. All right. Moving into the Q&A, we do have one question, which is a great great question. Maybe we'll add this to our regular list of questions. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently as you were transitioning from college into the workforce? Anyone want to take that first?
I can go.
All right.
I think something I would, I'm not sure how I would implement this. I'm trying to think about it, but I think I was really hard on myself immediately after college, and I think giving myself more grace in that, you just graduated, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and it will work out. It will all work out in the end. And so I think, because there's nothing to be gained by being super hard on yourself. And so I think just finding ways to give myself more grace and enjoy where I'm at. I'm a professional now, but I miss school aspects of it in that part of my life. And so I think enjoying where you're at is really important because you're not going to get that time back. And then, go and achieve the things you want to, but also don't be too hard on yourself. So that's what I would say.
Jacob.
Yeah, and then what I would say is just, I mean, like I was working, I think, since right after high school through college. And I know some people they always say like take time off. I didn't do that. I kind of wish I did. Just like maybe take like a couple weeks off or something like that and just be like, hey, on this break to kind of like celebrate this big old milestone where I just finished with college, which I've been working for most my whole life basically. So just kind of taking a breather would have been nice, I'd say. And kind of like Josh said, don't take things too seriously, I guess. Just let things happen.
Yeah, and it's always a fine line between being motivated and letting things happen, but there is a balance in there. And I 100% support the recommendation of taking a break between college and jumping into work full time because it's one of those transitions. You once you're in a full-time role and medical benefits, car insurance, home mortgage payments, all those things, it's really hard to step away and go take a 6-week backpacking trip around the country of your choice. So, it's a one of those rare moments in life where you could do something like that. Naomi, anything you would have done differently?
That was exactly what I was going to say. What you just said, I think too, is just like we're always looking for the next thing. So it's like, okay, I graduated high school. Now I'm going to college. Now I have to get into the workforce. Now, and we're always looking for that next thing. But I think, like you said, being young and finishing your degree is a huge thing. And so I think it's always like, oh my gosh, I'm scrambling at the end. I have to make sure I have a job lined up. And totally, we do want to have a job lined up. But I think just enjoying that time, that transitional period, you don't really have that again once you're locked into working and the commitments, like you said, of a mortgage, and maybe you get married, maybe you have kids, all these things that may be, bigger commitments that you have to stay employed for. Just having that time right there after college to just sit and breathe and say, you know what, I accomplished this huge thing. Let me, treat myself to this trip. Let me treat myself to this whatever it is. I think just giving yourself that grace of like, I did something big and it's okay to just sit in it and feel accomplished.
And I know several of you have talked about giving yourself grace and 100% agree. And I would say extend that grace to others too. Sometimes in the workforce, it's easy to misinterpret something in an email or that someone says in passing in the hallway, and just extending that inch of grace that, maybe they're having a rough day. That's probably not what they meant. I think we can do that for ourselves and for others and overall make the world a better place. Um, all right. We did have one more question come in. Um, Folks are wondering if you have any insights into navigating the current job market. I know we've seen on our end for a while, it seemed like there were endless opportunities. It feels like that's tightened up a little bit. So, do any of you have any advice on navigating the current job market?
I would say again, just applying for everything, even if it's something that you don't necessarily think that you qualify for, or maybe it's in a different field. And there's some part of finance that you can use, and it's partially something else. Like here, I work at the center, and most of my day is with numbers. But then sometimes when I have a free moment or I need a break, I go out to the front and we have a drop-in center, and there's teens and young adults hanging out, and I'll play cards with them. So it wasn't exactly like this strict finance role that I thought it might be, but it still has those elements. And so I think just being open to any kind of position too. So you might go into a position for maybe something administrative, and they're like, oh, we have a finance role open up. And you're here, and we've seen your work ethic, we've seen this, and we're going to move you into that role and interview you for it. So I think just being open to as much as possible. But I do know the job market is, hard right now. So giving yourself grace too. It's like, oh, I don't have a job right after I graduate. I don't have something lined up. That's okay. A lot of people are experiencing that. So again, yeah, just being open.
And I would piggyback on what you shared that sometimes people get very focused on, I have an accounting degree, I need to work at an accounting firm. But something to keep in mind is expand that horizon. Every organization out there needs people to do their accounting. So, you found your home in a nonprofit. Joshua found his in the state. Jacob with an investment company. So it can, people are doing accounting everywhere, and it's not always in the places you expect to find it. Um, Jacob, it looks like you unmuted.
Yeah, I was gonna just say, I know sometimes like you want to kind of go directly to the end goal, or like the dream job that you'd want to do. A lot of times you do have to kind of just get your foot in the door, or at least get some kind of experience first. So I mean, like straight out of college, um, my idea was I was probably gonna, I don't know, go to a bank or something like that, which I ended up going to a bank. But at first I actually went to Golden One at their call center. It was the company's great. It's not a job I'd probably want to do long term, at least within that department. But the experience at least got me in, and I was able to translate that experience over towards where I'm at now. And that's, I'm pretty sure, kind of like what helped me get to where I am now, is just kind of getting my foot in the door within that, at least the sector, like the finance sector. Um, and work my way up from there. But yeah, just kind of taking things maybe that you're overqualified for sometimes, and just kind of getting the experience and then working your way up. Kind of like what Naomi said, sometimes it's maybe not the exact thing you want, but then they see kind of like where you are, or at least you could take that experience and translate it over to where you want to be.
And I echo what both of you said on that front. Having been through many financial recessions and depressions over my career, often if you have your foot in the door, a company may not be doing external hires, but they are searching their internal candidates to fill vacancies. So if you have a foot in the door at an organization you believe in or speaks to your passion or your purpose, often there are opportunities to move around within that organization, even during tough budget times. All right, we're gonna do one last question. What are common mistakes applicants make on a resume or during an interview? Do each of you want to give an example, either from personal experience, something you did that you wished you could change, or something that you saw from a candidate applying for a job?
I can go first because the
Go,
mistakes are so
Joshua.
vivid in my mind. I think proofread your proofread your resume.
Yes,
Really, like
yes.
it's just because it does stand out very quickly. Not like the work that I do. It's like when there's, if I'm drafting a memo and it all looks polished and there's like this one thing that's wrong, like it does stand out. And I think it says a lot about you. And then I think something that is important is to really like think about like the story that you're crafting on your resume. Like this resume is like a story about you. And so like think, liberally about your experience and holistically about it. You know, incorporate the hard skills that you've gotten from school or whatever work you've done, but also try to incorporate the soft skills that you have as well, the challenges that you've like, gone through and be able to um tell like whoever you're interviewing, like tell that story to them because that's what your job is in the interview is to tell the story of like how you are qualified for this job. And I think for me that's been really helpful is that again my background's in psychology, but I was able to incorporate how my background in psychology works with the type of work that I'm doing now. And so Yeah, that's what I would say.
And you really hit on the importance of a first impression. I can tell you firsthand, there have been resume stacks I've been going through and some of those glaring errors, and it just goes right off to the side. And that might have been the greatest person in the world, but that was like, perch. Um, Naomi, Jacob, you both unmuted at the same time, so
You can go first.
Okay.
jump in, Naomi.
I would say tailoring your resume to the position you're applying for. I think it's great to have like a base resume of like your experience, your skills, all of that, but to really tailor it to whatever um, necessarily you're going for. There's definitely things you can pull out of your job that might lend differently to whatever position it is. And so sometimes I read a resume and I'm like, well, that doesn't really have anything to do, it's just kind of like a list. But if you're trying to say you're going for a finance role, it's like, okay, what did I do in whatever current position I'm in or a past position that could tailor to yeah, I have financial experience. I think that's a huge thing. And then I think also in an interview, I know it's great to use AI for different things, but probably not directly quoting maybe something that you got from AI. Sometimes an answer can be very generic and it's like, well, yeah, we can tell that's exactly where it came from. And I think just making it personal a lot of hires, people have the experience, they have the schooling, but it's also looking to see will we match as a person. And so making your answers personable, I think, is a big thing too.
Thank you. And Jacob.
That last piece you actually just took mine. I was gonna just say,
Ah,
yeah, I was just gonna say you guys kind of hit on like the initial step for the interview process, kind of just tailoring your resume towards the position you want. But mine was just more, yeah, show humility, be a person, be personable, and don't be a robot. So, I mean, you
yeah.
basically said it right before I said it.
Oh, sorry, Jen.
I,
It's
yeah.
all good.
I mean, think about it this way. If you get the job, they're going to see the real you anyway. So you may as well show the real you from the get-go. Be authentic to who you are, and if it's a fit, it's a fit, and it'll be the start of a new adventure. With that, I want to just take a moment to say thank you to our three panelists, Joshua, Naomi, Joshua. Jacob, sorry, I don't think I said Jacob. Excuse me. We really appreciate your time today, sharing your experiences, your advice, your insights into the career field has been invaluable. So I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. I will do one shameless plug before we head off. My colleague has been putting a lot of links in the chat, so check those out before you leave the Zoom room. But the one I really want to draw your attention to, because you heard all three of our panelists mention networking multiple times, is the Sac State Career Network. It is an online platform that allows you to jumpstart that networking process. It can be daunting to think of how do I go meet people that could maybe help me professionally. And this is a searchable database of people who have volunteered to talk to you. So that should take the fear factor away. Um, Hopefully, our panelists are also in that system. So if you wanted to talk to them further, you could look them up and schedule a few minutes to talk to them. But it really is a great, great, great resource. So shameless plug done. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a great afternoon and stingers up. See you at the next one.